Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chapter 5, Part 2. So we're halfway through Chapter 5, which is epistemology, the study of knowing. In our last video, we spoke about the intelligible, which we also call the relative or universal mind. And today we're going to speak about the visible domain, which you also call world mind. Isn't that right, Scott?
That's right. And of course, it's also relative because it is a mind. And I would like to, before we dive into the visible, I'd like to explain how we go from having a universal mind into having minds within it.
Nice.
So the mechanism, I think the most clear mechanism ever proposed was by Bernardo Kastrup. And he talks about dissociative identity disorder, which is a kind of microcosm that occurs in human individuals. And this is a metaphor for what must be happening in universal mind. And so in this dissociative identity disorder, or DID, it used to be called multiple personality disorder. But I think that it goes even beyond personality. It's your whole identity. It's like having different people, in a way, in one human brain. And so those are rare cases, but they're very instructive to see that this is even possible. And so I think this whole idea of having multiple personalities or identities within one person is just like a microcosm of what's happening with the universal mind having dissociated into two primary divisions, the visible and the invisible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we're going to do now is focus on the visible mind. And what that holds is what we would think of as the universe and what we study with physics and science. It's what we can weigh and measure. And there's kind of a simplification that has occurred in history of reducing everything to this one mind and believing that everything is just physical. It's made of atoms. That's all there is to it, folks. Nothing to see here. You know, there's no soul. There's no intelligible domain. There's just the physical, visible world. And I think that's the dominant paradigm that we're under. And so when I'm proposing these other domains, it's kind of like heretical to that dominant paradigm. And so I expect.
Can I just, sorry, Scott.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, it was just, I'm absolutely with you, by the way, and I totally am on track with what you're explaining about world mind, you know, but I just feel almost like a refresher because remember, this is a video series where people are going to be following along at various times. I think it might be helpful to just lay out the big canvas of the Reality Atlas model, just as a refresher, and just to put in context where world mind is, the topic of this video. So in my sort of simplistic way of putting it together, I look at the map, the basic version of it as to be comprising of four components, essentially. We have this foundational layer that we spoke about in video 1, which is called the absolute. Then we have this kind of like the first division, the first boundary, which is called a relative, which is like, you know, existence as we know it. And then within that particular circle, the relative, we've got two other circles, a bit like a yin and yang. One is called world mind, which is like the visible, everything you see when you open your eyes. And the other is soul mind, which is like the invisible, which we're going to do in the next video. So I just wanted to map that out just to give people a sort of a frame of, oh yeah, cool, I know where we're at, you know?
Yeah, the way I think of it is you got this big circle and then we're kind of detailing the left smaller circle inside of that big circle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so this is something that's obvious, and we're very familiar with world mind because that is the dominant paradigm. But it is still a mind, and we can kind of get a hint about that with quantum physics, in how consciousness is always part of reality in terms of the double slit experiment showing that it's an inseparable part of reality. Mm-hmm. And so the visible, when we try to figure out what is it made of, there's this quest in science to find the building blocks. And at the end of the day, they find there are these atoms, they have subatomic structures and so on, but the only way to describe those structures ultimately is through math. And there's a physicist called Max Tegmark who realized that all of that quantum physics indicates that reality is math. It literally is math. Not only is it convenient to describe it mathematically, but he took it one step further and says he has this identity that it literally is math. And I would kind of go along with that, because the visible is built out of the language of the intelligible domain, that it's a dissociation of. So everything, it ultimately comes back to that mathematics is kind of the fundamental language in universal mind that everything is built out of. But I think
I like I like the way you just to simplify it a little bit. I mean, world mind essentially is like anything we can weigh or measure. It's the material world. You speak about like matter being the visible world. So like on a basic level, am I right in portraying world mind as, when you open your eyes in the morning and you see the trees and you see the traffic and you see the world around you, this is world mind. And then we can kind of like expand that out to the planet, the solar system, the galaxy. This is all matter-based visible reality. Science loves this stuff, conventional science, because it's easy to weigh, it's easy to measure, it's visible, it's provable, testable, repeatable. So in a way, world mind is the world we know and have been kind of conditioned into believing is the world. Is that a fair way of portraying it?
And so my theoretical framework here that we're going through doesn't change anything about science. It doesn't say that it's wrong in any way. Science is completely appropriate for studying world mind. But what I'm suggesting is that there's more to reality than that. There's far more to reality than just what we can weigh and measure.
Yeah, and even what I like about your model, Scott, is a bit like when we were speaking about the qualitative aspects of geometry, we didn't want to throw out the quantitative aspects. It's not like we're for one and against another, and actually there's real like truth, beauty and goodness in the material. Like it's one of the most brilliant places to actually see the mystery unfold to you, like you were speaking about, these beautiful relationships between, I think, gravity and electromagnetism. But even on a simple level, the way you have like, if we go down to the atomic level, which if my basic understanding of it is the atoms are what basically are the building blocks of everything we are. So we're made up of carbon and water and these kind of things. Yeah. But those atoms then have this beautiful geometry to them, don't they? At the atomic level. And also, am I right in thinking that when you go from the nucleus out to the electron, that, there's just 99.999 of the distance between the nucleus and the electron is empty space?
I think it's like 14 or 15 nines, actually.
Okay.
And one way of thinking of that is that there's a kind of proportion of the size of the sun compared to the orbit of the outermost planet, which is Neptune, right? Currently, Pluto is kind of dethroned, but that's another story. But if you look at the size of the sun compared to the orbit of Neptune, that's comparable to the size of the nucleus related to the electron orbital cloud.
Wow.
So, our solar system is mostly empty space, just like an atom is mostly empty space. Okay.
That's incredible. And so
then
that kind of means we're mostly empty space.
It's all emptiness, really. And then the form is there, but the form, the nucleus or the electron, the thing is actually, when we really look into it deeply, we find out that it's just math.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, where's the mud? Where's the thing?
Yeah.
We're like, well, then there's quarks, and there's a bunch of quarks that make up that make up the proton, and yet quarks don't exist outside of protons. So it just gets more complicated math.
Yeah.
It doesn't change it. It doesn't, the quark isn't something real in the sense of it being a thing separate from consciousness. It is simply another aspect of universal language expressed through math. Consciousness is imagining that in this vast world mind. Can you imagine an intelligence that has unlimited capacity, unlimited calculation power, so that it can imagine every atom in the universe?
That's
That's
unbelievable.
kind of what we're faced with when we're thinking about world mind. And
Yeah.
world mind has structures. It is essentially recursively dissociated, which means it's like a series of
Can I ask you about recursive? You know, I didn't really get to joke, to be honest. You know, you kind of make a point going, oh, this is a little joke, but I actually didn't get the point about recursive. What do you mean by that?
So in the book, there's a geeky joke that like there's a dictionary and it says, look, you look up recursive, and the definition of recursive is see recursive.
Okay.
So it creates a loop.
Gotcha.
And so that's what recursion is. It creates a kind of loop back on itself. And so that ends up making a structure within a structure, within a structure, within a structure. And one way of thinking of that is like a series of Russian dolls that are nested, or layers of the onion that have all these different tissue layers that are concentrically oriented. So I think that the world mind in its logical structure is recursively dissociated. So for example, on the outermost layer, you have the whole universe. And then inside of that, you probably have superclusters of galaxies. And then inside of that, you have individual galaxies. And then inside of that recursion within the galaxy, you have individual solar systems, right? And then within that, you have individual planets or first of all, stars. And then within that, the planet.
Solar systems. Yeah.
And then going down a level, we have like life forms or bodies on the planet. And within that, we have, and also the planet is made of molecules. The bodies are made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. Atoms are made of quarks. And so we have this kind of hierarchy. It's more correctly known as a holarchy, which is transcend and include. So, and this is kind of from Ken Wilber thought of, you know, like the molecule transcends the atom and yet still includes atoms. So you have to have several atoms to make up a molecule, you see. And then like a tissue within an organism would be made up of a lot of different molecules, you know, with a lot of complexity. But the tissue transcends and includes the basic molecules into a new structure.
Gotcha.
So you can think of this, a convenient way of understanding all of this reality is to think of these different recursively dissociated levels of mind.
And when you say that line, sorry, Scott, to jump in there, but recursively disassociated levels of mind, right?
Yeah.
I'm struggling with the wording there, you know, so I'm just trying to work out, is it similar to like as above, so below? Are we talking about like, you know, at the galactic level, you have a galactic center and you have these arms that are kind of like, and everything is rotating around the center. Similarly, each star, individual solar system in that galaxy will have satellites that rotate around its central star. So the pattern and the movement on a certain level are similar. So is it like the self-similarity point? Is that what recursive is?
Yes.
Or am I thinking of something else?
No, that's right. It is. It's typically something that is thematically related, but at a different scale.
Okay, I understand that one.
Yeah, and we talked earlier, like the solar system is a great metaphor for the atom.
Yeah.
These are vastly different scales, but they seem to have the same proportion. And isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And this is why I like to call out the beauty of world mind, because like, I think actually, to be honest, that's been my starting point into the mystery, into the beauty, is like realizing, oh my God, are you serious? Like does like Venus really draw that shape around Earth? You know, is that actually what's going on?
And that's
You know,
primarily where beauty is. It's in the world. It's through our perceptions of world mind that we perceive beauty.
yeah,
Okay. And so it's very, it's a vehicle for transcendence in a way. And that would be called immanence in a kind of spiritual tradition of finding God within with
yeah.
all things. So there's kind of two poles in that kind of spirituality of transcendence, which is God is in a heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Say God is in the intelligible domain, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the idea of transcendence. You want to get out of here and get into the intelligible domain, the universal mind, right?
Yes, yeah,
But
yeah.
but there's another path, which is immanence, and that is that God is within all things. God is within you. God is within the body. God is within the atom. You see, and at a certain point, we start to realize that the word God sort of loses its utility in describing something specific if it's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Like in a, like I, even in flowers, for example, like it's a beautiful way to see simple shapes emerge. You know, like why do little wildflowers always show up with pentagonal petals, for example, you know? And it's kind of like when you have the lens cleansed to see the beauty in those simple things, it really brings you deep, actually, really brings you deep into connection with the patterns of order that bring everything into manifestation. And then you tap into the idea quite quickly. Wow, like what's going on with this? I
And
feel this every day, you know?
I think that like what you're talking about, the beauty of the wildflower, for example,
Yeah.
would be the qualitative experience of world mind. That
Yes.
we're feeling the quality of that and being blown away with the beauty of it.
Mm.
Another take would be to quantify that and to measure all of the different qualities of that wildflower and the DNA and the molecules and all of the complexity. And that would be the path of science. So it's
Yes.
taking that path.
And it's no less beautiful.
No
That
less,
quantitative.
it should just really enhance our appreciation on a different level and a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like you had a line in the book? I was listening to it earlier, and you were articulating the relationship between, was it gravity and electromagnetism? And somehow they were equal to the square of the distance. To be honest, it was a bit of a brain ache for me, but I'd like to ask you about it because it feels like it's an analytical or quantitative sort of understanding of the beauty, if you like, you know, but would you explain it to me? Because I sense there's something radically worthwhile in understanding in that relationship.
Well,
The penny hasn't dropped for me yet.
it's that you can kind of get a feeling, a qualitative feeling of the kind of mathematical representation of gravity or electromagnetism, just by thinking that on a very simple level, it's the, like when we're talking about gravity, it's the two masses, the mass of the earth and the mass of, say, your body. And so you multiply those together and you divide by the square of the distance between them, you know, to find the force of that attraction. So it's a purely mathematical relationship that involves the square.
Okay.
Like this, like a number multiplied times itself. The distance multiplied times itself is a square. And so that's all there is to gravity in the first approximation. It's good for like 7 points after the decimal point. Einstein's theories add another 7 points beyond that, I think. So
Okay.
there's just refinements on that. But what's really mind-blowing is that we can get this incredible level of precision by using a very simple set of equations.
I get you.
And
Yeah.
physicists have kind of wondered about that. I remember there was an essay by a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, Eugene Wigner, called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. And he was going on about how, like, it doesn't really make sense to him that math would be so perfect in describing reality, because he was laboring under the assumption that math was something that we invented as human beings. But he didn't quite get the picture, I don't think, that that math was already there and that the world is made of that. So of course it would map perfectly to it, or almost perfectly to it, with our very simple equations that we're using. And Einstein said, nature is the realization of the simplest conceivable mathematical equations, I think is what he said.
The most efficient, way of...
Reality is really amazingly simple. If you just find the right equation, it's like E equals mc squared. I mean, what could be more poetic or beautiful in relating energy and mass through a constant? Okay. And I think people are like, well, E equals mc squared is almost like a symbol of an incomprehensible mathematical formula to most people. But it's really just a very simple relationship between mass and energy related by a constant factor, which is the speed of light squared. And I kind of scratch my head and wonder, why do people find that so difficult to understand? It's like, because we're dealing with a square, like you just can't get the idea of a square. I mean, it's just a thing multiplied by itself. Not rockets. Well, it is rocket science, but it is not hard. You know,
I think this is what makes you quite unique, Scott, to be honest, because, actually, when you were talking about E is equal to mc squared, if I'm totally honest, I was like, oh yeah, okay. So it's like energy and okay, I got that right, is equal to mass. Okay. And then you square the speed of light. I'm one of those people that's like, hanging on to the skinny branches, I could get it, but it's not like you have this beautiful relationship with the quantitative, with the analytical, and what I've loved about our relationship has been, I've always, like when I was just on this journey myself, I was so into the experience and so into the sort of the qualitative feeling experience of geometry that, to be honest, I sort of dismissed the sort of the more mathematical quantitative ways of looking at it, because I was like, boring is what I thought. But you've really helped me change my point of view on that, by realizing the same beauty, the same goodness, the same perfection is in the quantitative and the mathematical as well, and it makes sense to me that it is. Of course it is like that.
Yeah, it's like when you get really into the sacredness of geometry and the qualitative aspect, it's easy to forget maybe that it's the same geometry, folks, that we're talking about with like theorems of Euclid and the mathematical side, and then like taking those geometries and making a building out of it on the quantitative side. It's really the same thing in the end. So it's exactly really a question of how you want it. What it is, it's a unified trinity ultimately, Geoff. So it's like we're looking at, you're prioritizing perception. Okay. There's two other ways of looking at this, and they all lead to the same place in the end.
And they all carry like equal value. I think that's kind of been helpful for me in terms of one, realizing my sort of default disposition. I think perception is like my home base, if you like, and as I've opened up to the other two nodes on the triangle, it's deepened. Even my perceptual capacities have deepened, as I've been able to enjoy the other ways of looking at it.
I think it's a natural growth, like developmental process, like it reminds me of like development through adolescence into early adulthood, where you may have started out like, I don't know, really social and like emotionally intelligent, but maybe not so geeky. Whereas maybe I was the opposite. I was really geeky and not so emotionally intelligent, right? But as you become an adult, you kind of round everything out, and you develop in those other areas that you didn't initially go to, but you definitely get all of that by the time you're a full, adult. You kind of keep growing in all of those different ways over your developmental cycle. And I think that's a natural thing with geometry too. You might be drawn into sacred geometry, but like my long-term goal is actually to have quantitative and mathematical courses on geometry as well. So that I can get you to become interested in that, maybe. Or maybe I can get people that are trying to improve their career by learning AutoCAD, let's say. And
Yeah.
then maybe you can get them to start to be interested in sacred geometry.
I know. And it's not like there's no hard divisions. It's like, as you say, and it's a lovely line, is that it's all the same geometry, you know. It doesn't mean that, like, you know, a pentagonal geometry is any more special because it's been used to move the planet Venus around Earth and that gorgeous kiss of Venus, or to give form and shape to a daisy or to a wildflower, than it is to build a chair or
to
know,
make a
something much
symbol
more
of like US military on a plane that has a 5-pointed star on the wing.
Yeah,
it's a powerful symbol, you know, as
yeah.
well. And
well, we're getting into the appropriation of geometry there, you know, because so many brands have just hijacked geometry.
Well,
you know,
I mean, it's in the public domain, isn't it? Geometry.
Yeah, I shouldn't say hijacked, actually.
So they're just using it. I mean, I think it's a wise move is to, you know, use geometry in your logo. And
Heineken is a 5-pointed star.
There you go.
San Pellegrino is a popular Italian mineral water.
I mean, we can go forever with it.
You can go forever. Texaco, the petrol, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But that is quite world mindish, actually. It's kind of relevant, isn't it? In a way, you could say that the way it shows up in marketing and branding is actually an appropriate reflection of geometry and world mind. Would it be?
Yeah.
Could you say that?
Definitely. Those are artifacts. You see it on the side of the bus. You see it in certain video screens of advertisements in Dublin. Talking about your business there, Geoff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, I've had many Heineken ads on there with all kinds of 5-fold geometry, you know. I've just had to enjoy it privately for myself, you know, because there's not a lot of ears that celebrate my passion for 5-fold geometry.
But it's there too, right? So if you see that advertisement for, let's say, Heineken, and you see the pointed star, it's resonating with you also on a qualitative level.
Absolutely.
And I think that the wise marketers are aware of that. They might actually, I don't think they're so conscious of it. I think they just they go in intuitively with, like, for example, the credit card, you know, is a golden rectangle, but it's only 98% accurate. So there's a slight gap there, and that tells me that whoever designed that proportion for the credit card felt their way into it. They didn't literally use a mathematical relationship. But they just found a very pleasing rectangle. And it's funny to me that
the golden rectangle,
it's almost perfectly a golden rectangle.
Yeah, I know.
We all have that. We all have that probably on our body or in our purse.
And
we use it all the time.
Yeah,
and
it's like our main tool.
We're using geometry and we don't even know it, you know.
We're carrying around golden rectangles, you know, like as our medium of exchange. It's kind of cool. So, Scott, is there anything else then on World Mind you want to speak to before we sign off on this section of Chapter 5?
Well, there's a lot of beautiful and subtle writing in there that I would love for you to actually read. And so I think if you're really enjoying what we're doing here in Reality Atlas, I urge you to take the next step and actually read this book, or listen to the audio book of the primary source, or watch me read it in the video book, because that will deepen your appreciation for what we're talking about. And I think that if you're listening up to this point, you're probably a fan of what we're talking about and you're interested. And so that would be another like whole trip you could go on that would deepen your appreciation for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. And you know what? The truth is, I mean, this whole series, Reality Atlas, it's a companion to the book, essentially, you know. So I'm hoping these videos and these kind of conversations where we're kind of teasing out the book together are like an enjoyable companion for someone who's this far down the rabbit hole with us, you know. But also it's lovely because it's been such a gift for both of us that this book is manifested through you. Thanks again, Scott, you know. But it is it's becoming so central really to what our project is all about. You know, I really enjoyed where we ended yesterday's or the previous video, with this idea that essentially we're kind of like putting ourselves forward as guides on the path, facilitators more than teachers. And this idea that when we speak about it in the next video about soul mind, you know, and really how sacred geometry is this perfect vehicle to connect soul mind with the intelligible, you know, the further reaches of the relative, you know, is really what we're about, you know. And it's a great mission, I have to say. It's a great mission to be on. I'm so excited with the way it's giving you and I that clarity. And I hope it's making sense for our dear viewers and listeners, you know. But yeah, I agree. It's like, hopefully people will be encouraged to read the book more because of these videos.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of, it's a different quality of guiding you, I think, because we're guiding you from your soul to the universal mind, whereas usually teaching is more about learning something that's in world mind. You're learning about like how to engineer the world mind. You're learning some skills, you're learning this or that. And it has a different kind of quality that we're used to of training, you know. But sacred geometry is a unique path that actually leads you to a totally different domain. And that's where it has like a transformational potential.
Yeah.
Whereas just learning some stuff about Microsoft Excel probably wouldn't do that, anything like that for you. You know, it would just be some more information that you can use. You know what I'm saying? And even learning AutoCAD would be like, well, I can improve my career and I can get the quantitative information about geometry, but it doesn't have that kind of potential to really get you to see your life in a different way, get you to look at the whole universe in a different way, and realize that there may be more to it than just the world mind. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Scott. That's beautiful. Thank you. All right. So shall we leave it there for this video? Oh, Ollie, my little dog, agrees with me. He's saying that's the perfect
time.
Natural break.
Okay, we'll see you in the next video when we talk about the invisible domain.
Looking forward to that. I love the invisible, I have to say. Really, probably my favorite part of the model, you know. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you then.